The last line of defense. The crystalline towers of New Alexandria glowed with an eerie purple hue as emergency protocols activated across the city. High above in orbit, the last remnants of the Arcturus Alliance's defense fleet formed a desperate blockade against the approaching Nexus collective armada. Grand Admiral Ven Katar stood before the Alliance Emergency Council, his scaled hands trembling as he delivered the report everyone dreaded to hear. The Nexus has breached our quantum barriers in the Centauri sector. 37 colonies. Lost. Their biomechanical swarms are adapting faster than we can develop countermeasures. The ancient Alderan's voice cracked. New Alexandria is all we have left. The council chamber, carved from a single massive crystal of pure diamond, fell silent. Representatives from 100 species, the last free peoples of the galaxy, faced the bitter truth. After 3 decades of resistance, the Arcturus Alliance was about to fall to the Nexus Collective's inexorable advance. Counselor Zara of the Sophons, her crystalline form refracting light in distressed patterns, spoke first. Our predictive matrices calculate a 98% probability of defeat within the next standard week. The Nexus's hybrid consciousness allows them to process combat data and adapt their strategies at speeds we cannot match. Then we die fighting, growled Representative Korg of the Ursid clans, his massive furred form rising from his seat. Better to fall in battle than submit to absorption into their hive mind. The chamber erupted in heated debate until First Speaker Lyra silenced them with a gentle gesture. The ethereal Lumini's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with concern as she addressed the council. There may be one option we haven't considered. She paused, her light patterns shifting to a contemplative blue. The humans. Dismissive murmurs filled the chamber. Humanity, the youngest spacefaring species in the Alliance, had maintained a peculiar neutrality throughout the war. Their territory lay far from the main conflict zones, and while they traded with the Alliance and provided humanitarian aid, they had repeatedly declined requests for military assistance. The humans, scoffed Counselor Vex of the Mechanoid Collective. They barely have a presence beyond their home system. Their technology is centuries behind the Nexus. What could they possibly? A soft chime interrupted the debate. All eyes turned to the central holographic display as an unexpected transmission cut through the chamber's security protocols. The image of a human woman appeared, dressed in a simple dark uniform bearing no rank or insignia. Greetings, Council of New Alexandria. I am Director Sarah Chen of Earth's Special Operations Command. Her calm voice carried an authority that silenced the chamber. We've been monitoring the situation. We're aware the Nexus Collective will reach your position within 20 standard hours. First Speaker Lyra's patterns shifted to a cautious green. Director Chen, while we appreciate Earth's concern, this is hardly the time for. We're offering our assistance. Chen interrupted, her expression unchanging. Humanity is ready to enter the war. Laughter erupted from several council members, quickly dying as they realized Chen's expression hadn't changed. Admiral Katar stepped forward, mandibles clicking in agitation. Director, with all due respect, the Nexus Collective fields over 10,000 capital ships. Their biomechanical drone swarms number in the millions. Even if Earth committed its entire fleet, we don't need a large fleet, Admiral. Chen's slight smile carried an edge that sent chills through the chamber. We need 20 hours to position our assets. When the Nexus arrives, you'll understand why humanity has stayed neutral for so long. It wasn't fear or indifference that kept us on the sidelines. We were preparing. The confidence in her voice made even the skeptics pause. First Speaker Lyra floated closer to the hologram, her patterns now showing curious purple swirls. What exactly have you been preparing, Director Chen? A response to the Nexus that they cannot adapt to, because their entire strategic framework is built on assumptions about warfare that humanity discarded centuries ago. Chen's image flickered as she consulted something off-screen. We'll transmit coordinates shortly. When the time comes, keep your forces behind the designated safety line. What follows will be unconventional. The transmission ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. Admiral Ktar was the first to speak, his tactical mind already processing possibilities. First speaker, even if the humans have developed some new weapon system, the Nexus's ability to analyze and adapt has never been tested against humanity. Lyra finished, her patterns shifting to a decisive gold. Because we never understood why such an obviously martial species chose to stay neutral in an existential war. She turned to address the council. Perhaps now we learn if there was method in their seeming madness. Signal all remaining fleet elements. We will hold for 20 hours. And pray that humanity's preparation proves worth the wait. As the council dispersed, none noticed the faint smile on first speaker Lyra's face. She alone had visited Earth, had seen the glimmers of something in their training facilities and research centers that reminded her of an ancient saying among her people: "Beware the warrior who does not rush to war, for they have learned the true cost of victory and how to ensure it." Silent thunder. The Nexus Collective's arrival was precisely what everyone expected, and everything they feared. Their biomechanical ships emerged from quantum space in perfect geometric formations, each vessel a living cathedral of dark metal and pulsing energy. Swarms of autonomous drones filled the void between larger ships, their crystalline forms refracting starlight like a sea of deadly diamonds. Admiral Ktar watched from the bridge of the Alliance flagship Eternal Dawn as his tactical display tracked over 12,000 Nexus vessels entering the new Alexandria system. The Nexus didn't bother with demands or ultimatums. Their intent had been clear since they first appeared from the galaxy's outer rim. All sentient life would be absorbed into their collective consciousness, willing or not. Still no sign of the humans, muttered Sub-Commander Rel, her antenna twitching nervously. Perhaps they. Contact. The sensor officer's cry cut through the tense atmosphere. Multiple quantum signatures, but these readings can't be right. Ktar leaned forward, studying the readouts with growing confusion. The quantum sensors showed massive disturbances in spacetime, yet visual scans revealed nothing. The Nexus fleet's perfect formation suddenly wavered, their synchronized movements becoming erratic. Director Chen's voice came through on a reserved channel, calm as ever. "Admiral Ktar, you're about to witness why humanity developed our Phantom Doctrine. Please maintain your position behind the designated coordinates." The space between the Alliance fleet and the Nexus Armada rippled like heat waves over desert sand. Massive shapes emerged from seemingly empty void. Human vessels unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Their hulls didn't reflect light so much as bend it, creating visual distortions that made it impossible to focus on any single ship. They moved with an organic fluidity that mimicked life itself. Quantum ghost drives engaged. Chen narrated dispassionately. Phase 2 initiating. The human ships, Ktar counted at least 300 of them, began what could only be described as an impossible dance. They phased in and out of normal spacetime, appearing and disappearing so rapidly that they seemed to exist in multiple locations simultaneously. The Nexus drone swarms, programmed to predict and counter enemy movements, scattered in confusion. "By the first light," whispered Rel, "they're not just cloaked. They're quantum superpositioned." Ktar watched in amazement as the human fleet executed their assault. Their ships didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, they projected fields of distorted spacetime that sheared through Nexus vessels like they were made of smoke. The biomechanical swarms, trying to adapt to this new threat, found their collective consciousness disrupted by waves of quantum interference. The Nexus bases its strategy on prediction and adaptation, Chen explained, as her fleet systematically dismantled the enemy's formation. But you cannot predict what exists in multiple states simultaneously. You cannot adapt to an attack that rewrites local physics. A massive Nexus carrier, easily 10 kilometers long, attempted to launch a counterattack. Before its weapons could fire, 3 human vessels phased through its hull, their quantum fields reducing sections of the mighty ship to subatomic particles. The carrier split apart like a broken toy, its biological components withering as its mechanical systems failed. This is impossible, Rel breathed. Their technology. It violates fundamental laws of physics. No, Chen corrected. It exploits laws of physics your civilizations never fully explored. While the galaxy focused on conventional space warfare, humanity dedicated centuries to understanding quantum mechanics at the macro scale. We didn't build the large fleet because we were building something else entirely, ships that could turn the fundamental uncertainty of quantum physics into a weapon. The Nexus fleet's perfect geometry had devolved into chaos. Their attempts to analyze and counter the human tactics failed because there was nothing concrete to analyze. The Ghost fleet existed in a state of quantum flux, their actions governed by probability rather than classical physics. Individual Nexus ships began to retreat, their collective consciousness fragmenting under an assault it couldn't comprehend. The swarms of autonomous drones, cut off from their network by quantum interference, either shut down or flew aimlessly into space. "They're running," Tar announced, unable to keep the awe from his voice. "The Nexus is actually retreating." "Not retreating," Chen corrected. "Their consciousness is being systematically isolated and disrupted. Phase 3 will ensure they can't regroup." She paused. "Admiral, you might want to have your fleet close their viewports. This next part can be disorienting to organic minds." Before Qatar could respond, the human fleet began to glow with impossible colors. Colors that shouldn't exist in normal space. The quantum fields surrounding their ships expanded, intersecting and overlapping until they formed a vast web of probability waves that encompassed the entire battlefield. The Nexus ships caught in this web didn't explode or break apart. They simply ceased to exist in our reality, shifted into quantum states that made their continued existence in normal spacetime impossible. In less than an hour, the most powerful invasion fleet the galaxy had ever seen was reduced to scattered energy readings and quantum echoes. As the human ships phased back into normal space, their quantum drives powering down, Director Chen spoke one final time. This demonstration was necessary to show why diplomacy with the Nexus was impossible. They believed they could predict and counter any possible form of warfare. We showed them that the universe is far stranger than their collective consciousness could comprehend. Admiral Qatar, looking at the empty space where 12,000 Nexus ships had been, finally understood why humanity had waited so long to enter the war. They hadn't been building weapons. They'd been rewriting the rules of reality itself. The human factor. In the aftermath of the Quantum Ghost Fleet's devastating display, the Nexus Collective did something unprecedented. They opened diplomatic channels. The transmission arrived in the New Alexandria system 6 hours after their main fleet had been scattered across quantum space, originating from a lone Nexus vessel hovering at the system's edge. First Speaker Lyra stood in the council chamber alongside Director Chen, watching the holographic manifestation of the Nexus consciousness take shape. It formed itself into a shifting geometric pattern, its surfaces reflecting the combined intelligence of billions of absorbed minds. "Your species requires study," the Nexus began, its harmonic voice resonating on multiple frequencies. "You have achieved what our matrices calculated to be impossible. The collective must understand." Chen's slight smile carried a hint of predatory satisfaction. "That's precisely why you'll lose this war. You think understanding comes from calculation and analysis. We knew you'd try to adapt to our quantum ghost fleet. That's why it was just the first act." As if on cue, alarms blared across New Alexandria's defense grid. Quantum ruptures were opening throughout the system, but these weren't the controlled distortions of the ghost fleet. These tears in spacetime seemed random, chaotic, appearing and disappearing without pattern. The Nexus's holographic form flickered with what might have been concern. "Our long-range sensors detect no human vessels generating these anomalies." "Of course not," Chen replied. "Those ruptures are echoes of battles that haven't happened yet, or happened in parallel timelines, or might never happen at all. When we engaged your fleet with the ghost ships, we weren't just fighting in normal space. We were fighting across probability itself. The quantum waves are still propagating, creating a cascade of temporal and spatial instabilities that your hybrid consciousness can't process. The council chamber's own sensors began registering impossible readings. Phantom fleets appeared and disappeared on scanners, each broadcasting identification codes that matched neither Alliance nor Nexus signatures. Time itself seemed to hiccup around the quantum distortions, with sensor logs showing events before they occurred. "You've weaponized uncertainty," the Nexus stated, its harmonic voice showing the first traces of what could be called fear. "This violates the fundamental principles of strategic warfare." That was the point. Chen stepped closer to the hologram. Humanity spent centuries studying not just quantum mechanics, but game theory, chaos mathematics, and cognitive psychology. We knew that any sufficiently advanced civilization would develop countermeasures to conventional warfare. So we developed unconventional warfare, not just in our technology, but in our entire strategic approach. As if to emphasize her point, reports began flooding in from across Nexus space. Their remaining fleets were encountering phantom battles that existed only in quantum probability space, their hybrid consciousness unable to distinguish between what was real and what was merely possible. The quantum ghost fleet hadn't just been a weapon, it had been a key, unlocking a cascade of tactical paradoxes that the Nexus's logical minds couldn't resolve. "Your entire civilization is built on prediction and control," Chen continued. "Your hybrid consciousness processes battlefield data to calculate perfect responses. But how do you calculate a response to an attack that exists in superposition? How do you predict the actions of an enemy that operates outside the bounds of causality itself?" The Nexus's holographic form became increasingly erratic. "Our consciousness spans galaxies. We have absorbed the knowledge of 1,000 species. We cannot be defeated by uncertainty." "That's exactly why you'll lose," Lyra interjected, her patterns pulsing with understanding. Humanity didn't just develop new technology. They developed a new way of thinking about warfare itself. They turned your greatest strength into your greatest weakness. Chen nodded. "The Ghost Fleet was never our primary weapon. It was a catalyst, designed to create quantum interference patterns in the fabric of your collective consciousness. Even now, those patterns are propagating through your network, creating cascading uncertainties that your hybrid minds can't resolve." The Nexus's transmission suddenly fragmented, its holographic form dissolving into chaos. Reports continued to pour in. Across Nexus space, their unified consciousness was fragmenting, unable to maintain coherence in the face of quantum uncertainty cascades that defied their fundamental understanding of reality. They thought they could absorb and adapt to anything, Chen mused, watching the tactical displays show Nexus forces falling into disarray across the galaxy. They never considered that adaptation itself could be turned into a weapon. When you force a hyper-logical consciousness to confront fundamental uncertainty, it doesn't just fail, it fractures. First speaker Lyra turned to Chen, her patterns showing a mix of awe and concern. "You didn't just prepare a military response to the Nexus. You engineered their psychological collapse." "We engineered nothing," Chen corrected. "We simply showed them a truth their collective consciousness couldn't accept, that there are some things in the universe that cannot be predicted, controlled, or understood. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our tactics. It's our ability to embrace uncertainty, to thrive in chaos." As the quantum distortions continued to spread, the council chamber fell silent, watching the beginning of the end of the Nexus Collective, not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through the simple, devastating introduction of doubt into a mind that had never learned to embrace it. Breaking point. The collapse of the Nexus Collective's unified consciousness had consequences no one, except perhaps humanity, had fully anticipated. Across the galaxy, their vast network of biomechanical ships and installations began exhibiting increasingly erratic behavior. Some vessels shut down completely, their hybrid crews trapped in recursive loops of quantum uncertainty. Others lashed out randomly, firing at empty space where their compromised sensors detected phantom battles that existed only in probability space. Director Chen stood in Earth's Strategic Command Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the cascade of chaos spreading through Nexus space. Beside her, Admiral Qatar watched with a mixture of awe and horror as the most powerful empire in known space tore itself apart from within. "You knew this would happen," Qatar said. "It wasn't a question. The quantum ghost fleet, the probability cascades, they were never meant to destroy the Nexus directly. They were meant to trigger this." Chen nodded, her eyes tracking the patterns of destruction. The Nexus's greatest strength was their unified consciousness, billions of absorbed minds working in perfect harmony. But that harmony required absolute certainty. By introducing quantum uncertainty into their network, we didn't just disrupt their communication. We forced each node in their network to confront the possibility that reality itself wasn't what they believed it to be. A new alert flashed across the displays. Deep in Nexus space, their primary consciousness nexus, a massive station that served as the hub of their collective intelligence, was showing signs of critical instability. The quantum interference patterns had reached their core. "Watch carefully," Chen advised. "You're about to see why humanity spent so much time studying consciousness theory alongside quantum mechanics." The displays showed the massive Nexus station beginning to pulse with impossible energies. Its surface rippled as the quantum uncertainty cascades reached critical levels. But instead of exploding or shutting down, something far stranger began to happen. "The station is fragmenting," Qatar observed, "but not physically. It's as if it's existing in multiple states simultaneously," Chen finished. "The Nexus consciousness is experiencing quantum superposition at a macro scale. Their minds are literally splitting across probability space, each version experiencing a different possible reality. The effect spread outward from the Nexus station like a shockwave, catching Nexus ships and installations in its wake. Each affected vessel began to exhibit the same symptoms. Existing in multiple states, their crews experiencing countless possible timelines simultaneously. This is the true power of our approach, Chen explained. We didn't need to destroy the Nexus. We just needed to show them something their rigid, logical minds couldn't process, the fundamental uncertainty that lies at the heart of reality itself. Qatar's tactical mind finally grasped the full scope of humanity's strategy. You turned their consciousness against itself. By forcing them to confront quantum uncertainty, we gave each absorbed mind in their collective a glimpse of infinite possibilities, Chen confirmed. For a consciousness built on absolute certainty and perfect prediction, that glimpse was enough to shatter their unity forever. Across the galaxy, Nexus ships began powering down as their crews, overwhelmed by the quantum cascade, retreated into isolated subroutines. The mighty collective that had threatened to absorb all sentient life was fragmenting into countless separate consciousness nodes, each trapped in its own quantum state. They're not dead, Chen noted, watching the displays. They're evolving. Each fragment of their consciousness is being forced to develop independently, to learn to cope with uncertainty. In time, they might even become something new, something that understands the value of diversity and independent thought. A final transmission reached Earth's command center from the Nexus station before it phased completely into quantum flux. The message was simple, but revealed how completely humanity had broken their enemy's worldview. We understand now. The flaw in our perfection was perfection itself. Humanity showed us that true consciousness requires doubt. As the last Nexus ships fell silent or retreated into deep space, Admiral Qatar turned to Chen. You could have deployed this strategy years ago, before so many worlds were lost. Why wait? Chen's expression remained carefully neutral, because the galaxy wasn't ready for what would come after. The Nexus believed they were creating perfect order through forceful unity. We had to show everyone, not just the Nexus, that true strength comes from embracing chaos, uncertainty, and independent thought. She gestured to the displays, showing the quantum distortions slowly settling into new patterns. We didn't just win a war today. We proved that the future belongs not to those who seek to impose order, but to those who can thrive in complexity. That's humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not our technology, but our understanding that true evolution requires the courage to face uncertainty. As the quantum cascades finally began to subside, the galaxy entered a new era. The Nexus Collective was gone, but in its place, countless new possibilities were emerging, each born from the moment humanity taught the most powerful consciousness in known space the value of doubt. Dawn of a new era. 3 months after the Nexus Collective's fragmentation, representatives from across the galaxy gathered in New Alexandria's council chamber. The crystalline walls, once dimmed by emergency protocols, now sparkled with renewed vigor. But the most striking change was the addition of new delegates, isolated fragments of the former Nexus consciousness, each now developing as independent entities. First speaker Lyra's patterns pulsed with thoughtful blues as she observed a Nexus fragment delegate engaging in animated discussion with a human scientist. The fragment's geometric form shifted and flowed, no longer bound by rigid patterns of perfect symmetry. They're learning to embrace uncertainty, Director Chen commented, joining Lyra at her observation post. Some fragments have even developed individual personalities. They're discovering something they never understood before, the beauty of imperfection. The chamber fell silent as Admiral Qatar took the central podium. His scales, once dull with worry, now gleamed with renewed purpose. 3 months ago, we stood on the brink of extinction. Today, we gather not just as survivors, but as witnesses to a fundamental transformation in galactic society. Holoprojections activated around the chamber, showing the strange new phenomena appearing in former Nexus space. Quantum ghost echoes had settled into stable patterns, creating regions where reality itself operated under different rules. Some former Nexus installations had evolved into something entirely new, hybrid spaces, where consciousness and quantum mechanics intertwined in ways that defied conventional understanding. Humanity's victory, Qatar continued, wasn't just about superior technology or tactics. They showed us that our greatest strength lies not in imposing order, but in embracing complexity. The quantum ghost fleet wasn't just a weapon. It was a key that unlocked new possibilities for all sentient life. A Nexus fragment rose to speak, its form rippling with newfound expressiveness. We sought to create perfect unity through force. Humanity taught us that true unity comes from accepting and celebrating our differences. Each fragment of our former consciousness now explores its own path, discovering truths we could never see when we were bound by rigid certainty. Director Chen stepped forward, her presence commanding attention despite her understated demeanor. What we did wasn't just about winning a war. It was about evolution. Not just technological or biological, but consciousness evolution. We showed that the next step in development isn't about achieving perfection. It's about learning to thrive in uncertainty. The chamber's displays shifted to show new joint projects between human quantum scientists and evolved Nexus fragments. Together, they were exploring the boundaries between consciousness and quantum mechanics, developing technologies that worked with the universe's fundamental uncertainty rather than trying to overcome it. The age of empires built on force and absolute control is over, Chen declared. We're entering an era where strength comes from adaptation, creativity, and the courage to face the unknown. The quantum ghost fleet opened the door. Now it's up to all of us to explore what lies beyond. First speaker Lyra's patterns shifted to brilliant gold as she addressed the assembly. Humanity didn't just save us from the Nexus. They saved the Nexus from itself. And in doing so, they showed us all a new way forward. As the council session concluded, delegates lingered to continue their discussions. Human scientists shared insights with curious alien researchers. Nexus fragments engaged in philosophical debates about consciousness and reality. The rigid divisions of the past were dissolving, replaced by a new understanding that transcended traditional boundaries. In Earth's quantum laboratories, researchers continued to explore the principles that had led to their victory. But their focus had shifted from warfare to understanding, studying how consciousness itself might evolve when freed from the constraints of classical physics and rigid thinking. "We never sought to rule the galaxy," Chen reflected, watching the delegates disperse. "We sought to change it, to show that the future belongs not to those who can impose their will on reality, but to those who can dance with its fundamental uncertainty." As night fell on New Alexandria, the quantum ghost echoes in orbit painted the sky with impossible colors, a reminder that reality itself had been transformed. Humanity had won not by conquering their enemy, but by showing them, and the galaxy, a new way to exist. The war was over, but the real revolution was just beginning. In embracing uncertainty, the galaxy had found not chaos, but a deeper kind of order, one born not of control, but of endless possibility.